Coach, as we transition into this 2025 season, we're still waiting on the official ruling of the House settlement case. But it appears that players will be grandfathered and protected, just from the reports out there. What are your thoughts on that? And how is that going to work maybe with some of the players that went in the portal for you? Could you get some of those guys back just knowing that there could be some grandfathering protection for some of those players?
Yeah, we as I told you in December or January, December, we told the guys, hey, if we did it right now, you'd be in the 105, or you wouldn't. So they could make decisions. The guys who stuck around through the spring, we had those same conversations leading up to that week, and really, guys either were saying to me, hey, Coach, I'm a Husker, I'm going to be here no matter what, or some guys were trying to figure out their future. And I sat here with a couple guys, and they were like, Coach, what should I do? I said, listen, you have to figure out what you want to do. But I'll tell you this, if you were Bryant, if you were my son, I would tell you to go put your name in the portal on Friday. You want to play in the spring game. They don't want to leave. So I said, hey, we'll hold the name till Monday because you have 48 hours to hold the name. So you're not out there in the spring game with the news breaking that you're in the portal. Mm-hmm. Then when it comes out on Monday, at least you're protected, right? So if this 105 thing goes left, it goes right. At least you're protected, and then some, opportunities might come your way. So I almost feel like an agent sometimes. I'm helping some of our guys right now. Some of our guys that were walk-ons here that weren't going to make the 105, or at least it might not make the 105. They've had some opportunities, some scholarships, and some really cool things. And so, they didn't quit on us. The system kind of left them, hanging out to dry. So, but we also have guys, and I hope he'll forgive me. Like I almost get a little emotional. I told the story to a couple of people. Man, I had Jacob Randall sitting across the desk from me, and he's come so far physically. Like he's done such a good job with his body. And as we're having this conversation, what's the 105 going to hold? He said to me, he said, Coach, I would just ask that, if there's anybody that can't make the 105 and our careers are going to be over, and they're going to, he said, I'm going to be here through camp. I will be here every day until you tell me that I'm not allowed to walk back in this building anymore. Wow. He said, but if you would consider lettering us, for all that we've done, and we're going to lose our chance to someday letter. So, I've been coming to this building, and one of the great things of my life has always been seeing my dad's name downstairs on the letterman's wall, see his name on that brick. And I do everything that I do so that someday my kids can see the same thing. And I'm like sitting there saying to myself, like, I have to tell this young man that he can't be here anymore. Like how crazy is that? So, I applaud the sanity that we might be having here moving forward, that, moving forward, maybe this is the right system, getting down to 105, but at least these young men that have been, busting their tails just to be a Husker, to contribute to the team, that they'll hopefully be grandfathered in and we can tag them. So some of those kids, to answer your question, Sean, some of those kids that went into the portal right before the thing, I think they'll probably still end up being here. A couple of them have gotten some good opportunities at lower level schools, and I think they might do that as well.
You'd be a good agent, by the way, if you ever want to do that.
They haven't fired me yet, so I got a little more time.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you'd be a good agent. You added a kicker, a place kicker recently. I just wanted to get the rationale on why you felt that was necessary. And then where are we at on the punter? What can you say, if you can say anything?
Yeah, you go back and look at last year, and special teams obviously weren't at the level that we wanted them to be week in and week out. And obviously, outside in the world, that it all goes towards coaches, it all goes towards scheme. But really, a lot of our issues just sometimes we're just with the battery. We're with the snapper, punter, holder, kicker. Now, Brian Buschini did a wonderful job. I don't mean to include him in that, but we had some turnover back and forth between two snappers. Tristan, did a really nice job as a freshman, then unfortunately was hurt, so he was battling through, an injury, and then ended up redshirting. John, we brought John in as insurance right before the season because of Tristan's injury, and John obviously early on had some struggles, and then turned himself into a nice kicker. And so went into the offseason hoping to get Tristan back, added a long snapper. So say, hey, we got two guys now. We got a guy with a lot of experience. But knowing that if you're not solid in those areas, it's hard to really be solid special teams wise. And so as we went down the path of winter into summer, John Hull had some soft tissue injuries. So Tristan had him last year. John had him this year. Yeah. And, that left us with really one kicker. Went through the spring with Tristan, and just kind of left out of this saying, let's make sure that we have elite competition, and that we know that if the game's going to come down to snap, hold, kick, that we're going to win the game. And so I think it was just really more of that, just the uncertainty and the competition of it. And so I have a lot of confidence in Tristan and John, but at the same time, the team requires that we address and make sure that we have the right thing there. And then, punting wise, as I talked about in the press conference, Eck wants to utilize the rugby style, wants to be able to go with someone who can punt right-footed and left-footed. And, we have a young man all ready to come. We haven't announced his name yet, but we would expect that he would be here on June 1st, getting ready to start workouts on June 2nd. And, Camden is still here as well. And so we have a depth. Johnny Hull can also punt. So we're trying to make this really a strength for us moving forward.
Great. Thank you, Matt.
Coach, when you assess just the spring portal overall, I mean, what were your thoughts on the depth and the quality of prospects available? And we know you at least talked to one running back. I mean, how serious did you get with maybe even trying to add a player or two in terms of what was available in the spring portal?
Well, I think the big thing is that, like, we were really aggressive in December to build this team. And whether that's recruiting, whether that's the resources, and then also obviously once we get into the spring, the development, I know that, a lot of people maybe anticipated, hey, they'll lose a bunch of guys in the spring portal. And really we didn't. We lost, maybe one player that we thought would project into the 2 deep and no starters. And so, I think for us, it was a good time, because what you find is, I think the biggest message I can put out there, and this was said to me by Troy Vincent, who works for us in the personnel department. Obviously his dad's, the number 2 guy in the National Football League. And the thing he said to me was, we always have to remember the desperate team sets the market. And so when young people are looking for lots of different things, but if they're looking just for finances, bad teams have more money because they don't have to spend as much money on everybody else. Good teams have their money allocated to other good players with lots of options. I tell our players, if you're a good player on this team and you've produced, you're going to get hit up in the portal every single time. Like, you should not be like, well, what's happening? Like, you're going to get hit up. And so a lot of our guys got hit up. We've allocated the resources as best we can. And so we didn't see a lot of need, or we didn't have a lot of resources left to go out and say, hey, let's go out and get a bunch of guys. Because I think we've tried to make sure we take care of the guys that we have here. I don't think there was a ton of depth in the portal. I mean, if you're in the portal right now, if a team's taking you right now, you basically are going there either to be a backup for if they're anticipating a long run, they're desperate, or you're kind of there as a guy for the following year. As I told some of our guys as they were getting hit up. So you're gonna go in the portal, you're gonna go on a visit, you're gonna show up somewhere June 1st. You're gonna be with your coaches for 3 or 4 weeks in June, learning the system for 3 or 4 weeks. You're gonna be on your own in July, and then you're gonna start in August. Like Sierra Wright's one of my favorite guys, one of the smartest football players I've ever been and been around. Tremendous talent. You look at the first 3 or 4 games, he only played 15 plays a game for us.
Yeah.
Because, we had Tommy, we had Malcolm, we had Marquise all established. Once Tommy got hurt, Sierra got a chance. It's really hard to go in the portal right now somewhere and be a starter in August. And so we didn't see many guys. We saw one player that we thought had a chance really to come in and help. Emmett's RB number 1, but thought help in that group. But as the economics start to happen, we're not going to also hurt our team by paying someone an exorbitant amount, significantly more than the guys that they're not starting above. I mean, that just doesn't make sense. And so I'm never going to fault someone for having a chance to have, get paid really well. On this other part of that, and it's one thing that I've talked a lot about with local recruiting, we're not going to make promises to kids in this area that we can't live up to. There's people saying all kinds of things, and some of our guys left and went in the portal, and they've seen the ugly side of this business in the spring. They've been cut, they've been dropped, their careers are over, they've had to go to another school. So the thing with us is we're going to operate with our guys and the Nebraska kids. We're going to operate very carefully, so that while people might be disappointed, they can never say we lied. And that's, I think, that's something that makes us, have to operate with, maybe a little bit more consciously and conscientiously. And that, while that might frustrate sometimes, it's the best thing in the long run, because we do not want to do right by the kids that we bring in from this area.
So you got your team. It's settled pretty much. it looks like a program that's on the trajectory where we need to start kind of paying attention to this playoff talk. I don't know to what extent you pay attention to it, but what is best for Nebraska in your opinion? Is it 12, 14, 16? Does it matter?
Oh, the more spots, the better, man. Make that thing 40 and let's go. I mean, I think, again, you're talking about a league there. Again, we play 9 conference games where some others play 8. So I think that puts you at an automatic distance. Like you look at 2 years ago, we're 5-7, right? And you think about the years with Scott where he was 5-7. Now you add in one more Group of 5 team, you take out one more Big Ten team, and actually now you're 6-6. The years where you're like this year, you're 6-6. Now you're 7-5, and you're just adding another win in. And so I think the more spots, I think if they do go to where it's guaranteed, hey, you get 4 at-large bids,
right?
If you can play your way into those things,
right?
You just think about playing meaningful games in Memorial Stadium in November, December, and January, where the weather starts to be a real factor. Every time we play UCLA or USC, the first thing I do is say, hey, where is it? When is it? Like, I want it to be as cold as possible. Now they're smart. They play each other at the end of the year and sometimes the week before the final week. So they're kind of protected from some cold weather games. But as we start thinking about the college football playoff, I want to play those games. I want to play those games in the Midwest, in the Northeast, in the North. I want to play them in cold areas to help the Big Ten. So the more spots, the better. We're playing in a really, really tough league. We're playing really, really good teams. And you know what? If you play in this league, you deserve a chance to, get to the postseason and see what you can do.
Coach, on June 1st, you guys will roll into camps. And one of the new camps you've added this year is a 7-on-7 event. We've seen events like this in the past at Nebraska, but just from the sounds of it, this one has a chance to be different and pretty elite. I mean, what can you tell us about the 7-on-7 event you've got scheduled in June?
Yeah. So last year I said to myself, what's the number one thing that we have to overcome? And it's been people from outlying areas not knowing how great this place is.
Okay.
Not knowing how great the facilities are, not knowing how great the campus is, not knowing how great Lincoln is, and not knowing how great Omaha, Lincoln, the airport, how easy they just don't know. And so they come in with one vision and they leave with another. I was talking to, one of the top receivers in the country. I was talking to his mom when she was here. She was like, Coach, you told me, but I had to see it. Now I've seen it. I can't believe how nice this is. I said to her, now imagine 3, 4, or 5 years of getting kids like your son here to visit. Hopefully you come great. If not, you don't, you go somewhere else, but you're always going back telling people about Nebraska. Once people know what this is like, it's going to take off. And I said, so the Colorado game on national TV, how big that is. Those opportunities where they see what's here. So we said to ourselves, how can we do some more stuff like this? We have our camps. We've really amplified the camps. We're already at the numbers that we can, hold for this year's camps.
Good.
But really, talking to Adidas, trying to get Adidas teams, trying to get a big time national 7-on-7. And it's not for this year's recruiting class. It's for the 27s. It's for the 28s.
Okay.
It's for the buzz that's out there. And so, we're going to have some high profile teams, some high profile players. But I think the biggest thing is just opening the doors to Lincoln to people, opening the doors to our campus to people, and open the doors to the facility to people. And then we're working on some other things like a summit, utilizing some of the great, there's some amazing sports brands here in town. And so you go all across the country, you tell them that, hey, Open Door started here. You tell them that Huddle's here. They're just blown away. So just trying to do some things in different areas to get people to come visit, to come see how great this is, go out and spread the gospel, and get a couple kids that that it fits.
This was whose idea was this?
Probably a little bit everybody's. In my mind, it was my idea, which means it was probably like Avery or Keith or But I mean, once something said to me, I'm like, yeah, we're doing that. But I mean, it's taken a lot of work. Like EJ Barthel, I kind of tasked him. I kind of tasked Susan. I kind of tasked Ed Foley, who's been doing a lot of our camp stuff. I kind of tasked those guys like, hey, just figure out a way to get this done. Work with all the people to get this set up on a date that works. And that's going to be a busy weekend. We have an official visit. We have this elite 7-on-7 that's happening, but it'll be well worth it.
Matt, I'm always interested in this. It kind of goes back to my beat writer days. Actually, I always want to know what's going on at in the building over there? It's hard to know when you're not around. What's the month of June like when you start June 1st or start whenever you want with the conversation? What is the expectations of your guys? And what are the expectations of Dylan, the quarterback?
So you're saying from a player perspective?
Yeah, mainly from a player. Yeah, mainly from a player.
I was gonna say like for the staff and coaches, like you ever seen like when they torture people, they play the hood on their head and they play the hard heavy metal. Like June is the craziest 23 days of the year for football for the staff, and not for me, for the staff, because it's like recruiting, player development, camps, and we refuse to slack anything off. Like you're not going to come to our camp and get coached by the third tight end coach. You're going to get coached by Sam. You're going to get coached by Donnie. So we take our camps very seriously. For our players, it's a ton of lifting and running. So the focus of lifting in the off season starts to move into a little bit more running now. And then we'll do 3 football skill specific / walkthrough type stuff. So the rules are different now. So we'll do 3 OTA style workouts a week that are within rules.
Okay.
That'll be somewhat new for us. We've done a smaller version. We'll amplify it this year. And we'll do that really for the first 3 weeks. Then it goes dead on June 23rd. We might do it for 2 more days that week.
Okay.
And then I'll cut the coaches loose. And I've always wanted the coaches to be away for the month of July. Okay. I think it's good for them, but I think it's even better for the players. And, what's happened is we have a group of guys that have said, hey, I'm going to take on a leadership role. And I know Dylan, the one press conference, I think he acknowledged some of those names. But what they've asked me is, they came into me with a plan. And I just told them, I said, I don't want to hear about your plan. Just do it. And just some peer accountability, just some, not just doing what's required, doing what's unrequired, doing extra, getting together as a team. So they'll do all the football stuff. It'll all be voluntary in July. And it won't be voluntary where, you got a coach out there with a script, making sure they volunteered. It's going to be on them. And if they want to have a great team, then they'll have a great July. If they want to have a good team, they'll have a good July, so on and so forth. So, but I always felt like when I walked in the first day of training camp and they hadn't seen me and they were happy to see me, I was like, okay, we had a good July, right? Like, I've been away. So June is structured. It's a lot around us, development, class, but also the football. And then when we're done teaching for 3 weeks, 3 weeks and 2 days, then July will be their time to take it to another level.
Great. Thank you.
Well, Coach, did you get a chance to peek at Arrowhead Stadium this weekend at all when you were down in Kansas City?
No, but Haven was there. Haven Fields, our sport administrator, for football. I think deputy athletic director, if I say that right, but he was down there doing a site visit, and so right at the end of spring, right when the portal first opened up, and I showed that picture and I said, you know what? All these people are going to enter into all your lives. All these distractions are going to enter into our lives. But when I go to bed at night and when I wake up in the morning, I see this picture. It was really just a picture from the press box of the field. It had the turf was being laid or fixed, so it was like partially done, partially not. And it's kind of like our team, right? Like we can see where we're headed, but we're not done yet. So I'm excited for it, and I was really excited. I met some people from the legislature there. I met some influential people in sports there in Kansas and Kansas City. Saw some people from the Chiefs while I was down there. So I think people in that area are really excited that we're coming down. We're recruiting that area at a really high level. Rob Dvorak, Coach Mosey's done an amazing job, and I think coming down there is going to be a really special thing. And we don't know the time yet, but it sounds like there's going to be a lot of games that night, and it sounds like our game will be at a time where hopefully, most of the country is going to turn into it. And watching Cincinnati, they have an excellent team. They've got a great quarterback. So we'll be challenged right off the bat. This is no layup to start the season. Now this is a big time football team, and it's what our team needs, right? We need to start off with that type of a game.
Well, everyone's excited. It'll be Nebraska's first game in Kansas City since 2006. So it should be a fun weekend. Coach, we appreciate the time, and there it is, Arrowhead Stadium. It's one of the best stadiums in the country to watch a football game.
Sean's a big Chiefs fan, Matt.
Oh, well, it's
there it is.
You think about it, I've only been in there once. I was there when I was in the NFL, and it was during COVID, and it was the first game that there was any fans in. I think there were like 15,000. That was it. It was the best grass I've ever seen in my life.
Huh.
First, so that, And then because there was only 15, but I played in front of no one. So it sounded like 15,000 sounded like 150,000. It was so loud. I was like, I can't hear, but you think about it. I think it's 8 home games this year. Is that correct? 8 home games?
Seven home games plus Arrowhead.
8 home games plus that. My wife's obviously got the dry bar, so I was explaining this to her yesterday, and she said, can you make all those home games night games so I can, have a ton of people come in during the day? So I said, honey, I don't have any say in any of this, but I think it's cool. Like, I think it's just the impact on Lincoln to have 8 home games, to have some great teams coming in. And then obviously, to go play in Arrowhead to start the year, I think it's just going to be hopefully a really good experience for the students and for all the fans and, all the Husker fans out there.
Well, Coach, we appreciate the time.
Yeah, that was illuminating.
Looking forward to seeing you over at camps in June.
You know what? We should do like a get together, one of those things. Like, like bring all the media in. And
why don't we?
Well, what's that? I'm looking. Well, Keith Mann's in here, right? 'Cause he doesn't trust me. He's afraid I'm going to say something wrong. So, am I good? I'm not trending yet. No, but in all seriousness, no. I think this time of year, I know fans are so excited. So I appreciate you guys having me on because, I think it's really important that people know that, like, we know how many people support us. Like, we're excited about it. Like, even walking through the crowd yesterday, there's Husker fans everywhere, and I think they're excited about the team. So I appreciate the way you guys will cover us and come to the camps. It takes a lot of work to do those things, but I like it because you guys can see the detail. Hopefully, we put into it. And,
we did.
And,
we did.
It pays off in the long run. I keep saying to myself, like, I can't wait for the first time, man, that some kid someday commits to us and he has a picture of me and him at like a youth camp or at one of these things that we do. Man, it's going to be such a cool experience. One of the big recruits we brought in from Texas, he had a picture, he's like 6'5", 330 pounds. He had a picture of him and I at Baylor at our youth camp there when he was like 5'5". And so that's going to happen here in Nebraska. But I just think before, we kind of go quiet, I think it's an appropriate time for, us as coaches to thank you guys, thank all the media, but also thank all the fans. Even coming to watch us eat wings, and do things we did on spring game. It's really special. It's really special, the support that we have. So we'll work our ass off to make sure it's all for the right reasons. That we're
and catch punts, right?
What's that?
I said, and catch punts.
You couldn't have paid me to go out there and catch that. Like, just remember this. I'm the one who said, hey, I want to do this for Sipple. I said, Sip, I want you to go out there and catch it. I couldn't even find him on the field. I yelled for Sam. But Sean, you were the man in the arena. You went out there, bro.
I misjudged. I got the second one, but your social media people sure had fun. You're not yours.
Let's not say yours. That was not Husker football. That was Huskers. That was not Husker football. I would never, ever, ever, ever do that because I don't think I could catch the punt. You notice I paid Eck to I had Eck do the 225. You guys. So a couple players were like, "Coach, jump in." I was like, "Are you kidding me?
Hold on.
That bar could trap me and roll up on my neck, and I'd go viral." Matt Rhule died today on a bench press. So
hold on, you're 50. I'm 58 years old. You think about when you're 58. Would you go out there? You're not going out.
I wouldn't go out there at 50. My job's to call you guys out to go, and Sean went. So thank you, Sean. Thanks for going out.
Well, hey, Coach, thank you very much, and I'm sure we see you soon. Appreciate the time, Coach Rhule.
Thank you, Matt.